This video has everything you need to start getting value with Gwanwyn, who is the starting hero for the Spring Wardens. Whether you're using her to get extra experience from Darklings or battle other players, this video has the talents and pairings you're looking for. Hello my friends and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming, and today's video is sponsored by the makers of Call of Dragons. And as is the case with every one of my commander guides, today we'll review the skills, talents, pairings, and best artifacts for Gwanwyn. And she is the starting commander for the Spring Wardens, which means if you chose that at the start of the game as your faction, you will get more tokens of Gwanwyn. So if you want to jump to any one part of this video, consider using the timestamps in the description, and thank you for smashing the like button and also subscribing to the channel for daily videos designed to help you get value and smash your enemies in Call of Dragons. Let's start with the skills, and let me tell you, I have had people show up in my live stream chat calling me a lunatic, a madman, and a moron for not understanding why Gwanwyn is better than every legendary in the game, and I was like, okay, you're wrong, but her skills are good. So let's talk about why her skills are good and why it is that some people are way overestimating how powerful she is. The first skill, her active skill, effectively does damage over time, but not exactly. It makes it so that her march does damage to an enemy legion 3 times in quick succession. You do 200 damage factor, 200 damage factor, 400 damage factor. Now, that's not good. That's actually pretty bad. Why is that? Abilities that take place over multiple turns allow your enemy to escape. Your enemy can literally walk away from you and you could lose damage. For player versus player combat, it's way better to have all of your damage front loaded. For example, we look at another epic, Atheist. All the damage is front loaded. It's the same amount of damage, but it's dealt instantly. That's way better. You could make an argument, oh, but Chisgule, maybe you'll switch targets and then you get damage on the other target. I guess. But I generally think the far more valuable skill is to just do the damn damage up front. Okay, so what about the second skill? 15% more damage to Darklings and Dark Creatures. All right, I mean, for player versus environment, that's fine. I would argue the thing we all need to optimize for is really the player versus player combat. So let's go to the next skill. All Marksman units in her legion gain 15% attack and 10% march speed. I like that. That's solid. March speed is really good for player versus player combat, and it's very important that you balance the march speed across the different troops that you're bringing to the battlefield and marches that you bring. Okay, so that's good. From here, next skill. When you have more than 50% of your units remaining, her damage dealt is 10% higher. That's pretty cool. 10% all damage is good, but it's contingent on having more than 50% of units. Well, here's the problem with Marksman in player versus player combat is that their range is shorter than mages, which means since most people at the start of the game are using mages and marksmen and not a lot of cavalry and not a lot of infantry, you run the risk of being a focus target and going below that 50% pretty frequently. The one and only insanely redeeming skill is the Awakening skill. When you max every other skill on Gwanwyn, she has something that is very powerful. And that makes it so that when her legion launches a normal attack, that is when you directly target an enemy, there is a 50% chance to poison the target, dealing hero skill damage every second. That's 100 factor for 3 seconds. So that's powerful because sometimes when you're battling other players, you hit them for a couple seconds, they walk away before any active skills are used. Well, you could get some good chip damage using this Fervent Wind ability. And that's where I think the person who showed up in my chat basically foaming at the mouth with my incompetence. It was really weird, man. They were trying to say that Fervent Wind is really good, which it is. But do not get confused. Gwanwyn is not better than your legendary counterparts. She is good. And I like a lot about the single target damage focus that she has. However, when we talk about the pairings, you'll see why she is one of the last archers I've worked on. Now, you should use her, of course, if you're the Spring Wardens or if you're free to play or a low spender. She could potentially be a critical part of your roster. So if that is true, what are the talents that you use with her? Well, she's Marksman, Peacekeeping, and Precision. So even if you don't plan to use her for battling other players, you should plan to use her for Peacekeeping, which is exactly what I have done. Now, why is it that I've gone into the Peacekeeping tree? It's because of this over here, Predestination. You gain 5 extra level 1 tactics manuals when you defeat Darklings or Dark Creatures. So that's 500 extra experience you could put onto any hero. Plus, I get a tiny amount of extra resources every time I defeat some Darklings. That's it. That's the whole reason, the only reason I'm using her currently, is to get some extra experience when I battle Darklings. Now, just keep in mind that extra experience is cool, but it's better to use 2 heroes you actually wanted the experience on. Which is why, although the majority of my heroes are level 60, we're already at the point toward the end of the season where the dragon's going to be captured, and she's still not max level yet. What I'm trying to say is that, sure, extra experience is good, assuming you wanted any experience on her at all. Are you using her? If not, you probably should just use the heroes that you wanted the experience on rather than going out of your way to get some peacekeeping talents, to get some extra tactics manuals, okay? Now, along the way, I took some stuff that I feel like is very obvious. March speed to go between Darklings faster, hit points. You have to take arrows of precision, which is really great. You deal 2% more normal attack damage and mitigate 1% of the enemy's defense. I went for the March speed and the rage generation. From there, I took a 10% chance to do extra damage to the Darklings. I want them to drop fast. I took more March speed so I can go between Darklings quickly. I took the extra rage. Then I took Predestination and finally War Trophy. After that, I doubled back and took more damage to Dark Creatures and damage mitigation against Dark Creatures. And I'll just fill out the points in the Peacekeeping tree because they are actually insanely good, point for point, for the activity of battling Darklings. But let's say that you wanted to battle other players. There's really 2 builds I would recommend to you. One is going to be the Marksman build if she is the primary. Now, if you're using her as the primary, the thing I like about the Marksman build is that point for point, they're just insane what you get. So over here, for 5 points, you get 15% March speed. That is nuts. The same number of points in the Precision tree only gives you 10% of March speed. The same number of points in the Peacekeeping tree gives you 10% of March speed. So what I'm trying to say is there's a big argument for going into the Marksman tree because of how good these points are. Now, this March speed is not the first thing I would take, however. I would first take the Rage generation. 10% chance on your normal attacks to get 50 Rage. It's just too powerful to get your active skills going faster. I also took 4% more hero skill damage because you have a lot of ways to deal skill damage here. You have your instant proc skill damage from the Awakening skill. I also made it so I took Shower of Blows. So there's a 50% chance when you cast a rage skill that your next rage skill will deal 8% more damage. I want to deal more damage. And to deal more damage, first I took more health and then got more rage. When you're over 50% of unit count, you get 15% more rage accumulation speed. Now, why did I take that? Because you want more than 50% of your units anyways, because she will do 10% more damage on your 4th skill. If you get below 50% of units, you probably should run her home. And so I wanted to get the rage accumulation speed, just double down on that plan. From there, I took Radical. Reducing my defense, but increasing my all damage by 3% seemed too good to skip. And then lastly, Pursuit. When your Legion consists entirely of Marksmen, they inflict a fragility debuff when casting rage skills, increasing the normal attack damage taken by the target by 10% for 5 seconds. That seems amazing. I'm all in on the debuff, baby. We could have taken this one. When your Marksman Legion launches a normal attack, they deal additional hero skill damage. This was definitely a worthy consideration because you're already doing that damage over time effect with her. You may as well add more ways to just get chip damage when you poke. But instead of going for that, I thought, you know what, this debuff is too good. It's an amplifier for everybody hitting the same target, and that is always, in my book, a win. Debuffs to the enemy that make it so that everybody hitting that enemy does more. Always a win in my book, okay? Now, then I went back and I took the extra March speed, and the remaining points I have here, I would put into other things in the Marksman tree if you go with the full Marksman build. For example, some points that you could take over here. Let's see. I don't want that one when you're below 50% unit count, but egoism's good. Your hero takes less skill damage. I mean, the reality is that your unit is forward. You're going to be taking a lot of damage because Marksman's range is shorter. The other one I really like is if you're countering mages, which you should be. I mean, at the start of the game, everybody's using mages. Getting 5% into magic counter tactics for 5% more damage to mages is amazing. If you want to hunt mages, I think this is a really great pickup. So all the remaining points get dumped back into this marksman tree if, in fact, you are going full marksman. The other option is to go with the precision tree, and I actually think there's some cool stuff you can do here, so let me explain. You've got the same foundation talents, but then I go for extra march speed on the right-hand side, making it so I take less normal attack damage. So if an enemy targets me, they do 4% less normal attack damage. Then I took Whirlwind. When you launch a normal attack, you have a 10% chance to do extra hero skill damage. Now we're moving all in on the plan that, like, okay, this March, because of her awakening skill, we can do a lot of chip damage, a lot of poke. Let's go all in on that. So I took Whirlwind. From there, I took 10% more normal attack damage dealt when my unit is above 50% of troops. I'm doubling down on that fourth skill, which is also giving me 10% more damage when I'm over 50% of troops. And then from there, it's all about rage restoration. 10% chance to grant myself 50 rage. And also when casting rage skills, I get a chance to increase my normal attacks. And Mighty Slash. When launching a normal attack, your Legion has a 15% chance to trigger an additional normal attack. So I'm all in on the poke damage. Even if I don't get my active skills to trigger, which I do want to happen, I'm going to get some really good poke damage messing with the enemy. From there, I actually want to go into the marksman tree. And you got to get the base attack, but then you can choose. Either you get high spirits for the rage, or you get the march speed, which I think is super legit. From there, I really like intimidation to boost my hero skill damage. I think that's a really great pickup. And then I would take Shower of Blows again. When casting rage skills, there's a 50% chance that your next rage skill will deal 8% more damage. The only reason you wouldn't be taking a talent like this is if you pair with someone who doesn't do skill damage. So now's a great time to talk about, okay, Chisgule, who are we pairing Gwanwyn with? If you're looking at epics, there is one obvious option, and that's Krieg. Krieg has the marksman and mobility trees. If you were going to do just a marksman build, it kind of doesn't matter who the primary is. But if you wanted the precision build, then Gwanwyn has to be the primary. She's the only one that's got that. And if you're moving in on that poke damage, then that's what you would want to do. Now, Krieg is really strong because he does area of effect damage. And I really like this. I'm a huge fan of big area of effect damage. Now, he does give extra defense if you have only flying units, and you probably won't have only flying units. If you're Wilderberg, you might go with their special unit, which is a flyer, and then I think you're in a good spot. That special unit's pretty powerful too. I mean, you get 2% extra hit points and 6% extra skill damage if you stand still for like 5 seconds. So I think Krieg is a really good pickup. Look at this. After he's awakened, you do 800 damage factor and deal additional hero damage to 2 nearby legions for 300 factor. And all targets that take damage also gain a bleed, dealing physical skill damage every second for 3 seconds. Physical damage factor 200. Hello? Krieg is nutty, dude. Yeah, no, I mean, he seems really good. Pair with Gwanwyn. And at the epic tier, that's pretty good. But can we do better? I think we can. One other pair, I guess I would not say is better, would be Eliana. I'm just going to mention that you can do this. She's totally versatile, very tanky. You could do this if you had Eliana maxed, but for both peacekeeping and for battling other players, I just feel like you want them separate. She's not the go-to. The go-to should be your legendaries. And if you're free to play, then Nico is the one that you're looking to pair with. Nico does a really powerful debuff, so you'd want him to be the primary. You do Nico and Gwanwyn, and the reason you do that is he will reduce the defense of the target, and then you're going to hit them. Nico, if you're free to play, would be your number 1 pick. The other hero that you could choose would be Kanara, and Kanara is really exceptional. I would prefer for her to be the primary because the control tree is really, really good when you're battling other players. So you'd go Kanara primary, Gwanwyn secondary. Will work very, very well. She herself is very strong and also boosts her counterattack, which is pretty cool. She's also got a march speed reduction, and if I'm remembering correctly, I guess she doesn't have any march speed herself. So it's a good thing that Gwanwyn has some march speed. I mean, let me tell you, archers, marksmen, are very slow in this game. They move slowly. So getting the extra march speed on Gwanwyn is really, really good. Another hero you could pair with is, of course, Hosk. He could be the primary, and I think there's some virtues to having him be the primary if you wanted to use the precision tree. Even the overall tree is actually not bad. People slam it, but it's actually pretty good. So all that to say, Hosk would work. I'd be surprised that that's who you're pairing with, though. I think the more likely thing is that you've opened gold keys, you have Nico in a fine spot, so you would pair Nico with Gwanwyn, and that's great. For your marksman pair, especially if you didn't spend Kanara, you're in a really great spot. If you were spending, probably your one marksman pair that you bring is Nico and Kanara. If you wanted to bring two marksman marches, what would you ultimately do? This is actually an interesting question. I'd probably pair Kanara with Gwanwyn and Nico with Krieg, but I'm sure there's a bunch of ways you could slice that would still be really great. Okay, so from here, let's talk about the artifacts. What artifacts do you use with your Gwanwyn? And I think it's exactly the same as what you'd be using with your legendaries. Shadow Blades has got to be your number one pick. Okay, got to be your number one pick. There are a lot of really great artifacts out there, especially for marksmen. The other alternative that I think you could go for is the Heart Piercer. Heart Piercer is very strong, nice single target damage, applies a defense break potentially to the target. At the epic tier, that's what you would go for. So your number one choice is, again, the Shadow Blades. Your number two choice is the Heart Piercer. There are a couple cool options that are off to the side, we'll say. One is the Bomb Flinger. I mean, this is only for PvE, though. So I don't love this, but you have a chance to stun the target, which is kind of cool. I'm not a huge fan of PvE stuff. The Archery Master's Manual is also an option, but I don't love this. You give yourself extra attack. I'm not a fan. I like the big damage. I like it all up front. So Heart Piercer, Shadow Blades are the two big ones. Eventually, we'll gain access to this guy over here, Viola's Bow. This is currently not in the game as of the time I'm recording this. Maybe in older servers it is. But Viola's Bow would be really, really good if you had access to it. I'm pretty sure this will come from a Forge of Light event, so this is like a spender's item. But the reason it's powerful is that not only does it hit 5 targets, but damaged targets are sealed and cannot cast artifact skills for 10 seconds. This is better than Shadow Blades, in my opinion. I mean, I will slam dunk use this. The only downside of Viola's Bow is that it's boosting hit points, which you really don't want for your marksman. You really want to boost your attack. And the reason is very simple to understand. If you look at your marksman unit and we look at like, hey, what stats do they have base that you're boosting? The marksman's highest base stat is attack. It's more than double the hit points. So you get way more value, I think, from boosting the attack than from boosting health. After having battled in server 32, which is the server that is the most fighting in the game, I can say that I got a lot of experience using my marksmen. And even though they counter mages, and mage is the unit you see the most, I always felt like I needed to micromanage the position of my marksmen. If they ever stepped too far in front of my mages, they frequently got targeted and wrecked. So once I started to micromanage my marksmen separate from my mages, I got better results. It just took a lot of attention. And there's other things that I would have liked to have been paying attention to. So I do think that marksmen are cool, but when compared to mages, I just enjoyed bringing more mage marches because of their incredibly long range rather than bringing lots of marksmen. So all that to say, I do think that marksmen are powerful. I do think that Gwanwyn's chip damage is really cool. But am I generally on the marksman plan? Personally, probably not. If you got Gwanwyn because you went with the Spring Wardens, I think you should use her. But as far as epic heroes go, I do feel like there are others that I strongly preferred. Like, for example, Waldir was freaking amazing and clutch. Atheist was freaking amazing and clutch. And I mean, on the topic of flyers, one pairing I overlooked is actually Theia. You certainly could pair with Theia, and actually this gets more interesting than I was letting on, because at least with Theia, she's very, very, very tanky. So if you're going to have Marksman be in the front, making them tanky is actually not a bad thing. It's funny, I only get to the end of the video, I'm like, actually, a Theia pairing would be pretty legit with Gwanwyn. And you could even use the overall tree if you wanted with a Theia primary. I think that would actually be pretty good. In a best case, however, you'd be Wilderberg for their flying unit that is also a marksman, if that's what you want to do. But if you have any other tips, tricks, or advice for Gwanwyn, definitely let me know down below in the comments. I feel like she's good, but money where my mouth is, she's been on my bench pretty much all season. She hasn't been good enough to use over all the other options. If you're looking for more information about which heroes are the very best, I'll have 2 cards in the end screen. One, which is an overall tier list, and another, which will tell you the pairings I think you should start with at the beginning of the game.